So I saw this, and I've got to say something about this. Um, and it's mainly Dale Vince or Vince Dale. I forget which order you say his name in because, like, Dale Vince, Vince Dale. It's like they're both, what you call trendy names. They're so trendy that I'd never know which one is the coolest and which one to use first. Dale Vince or Vince Dale, but it doesn't really matter. So that's why I usually say Dale Vince Dale or Vince Dale Vince. I usually use three of them, where it's almost like Morse code, SOS, whether it's OSO. As long as you keep saying them, you can keep going OSOSOSOS, and eventually it goes into SOS, or SOSOSO. But it's the same thing repeated. You still Vince Dale Vince Dale Vince. Once you say it three times and keep saying it, and no matter what order it goes in. But anyway, that was a waste of 57 seconds. So look, these wind farms, right? These wind farms. I can't stand wind farms. I myself, being someone who's travelled the country and is like quite fond of England as an entire island. I've spent most of my life travelling around this country and getting to see all of the different counties, landscapes, and so forth. I don't like wind farms. They're just like white matchsticks everywhere, and there's an infinite number of ideas you can do for natural energy. I mean, they used to have water mills, but the only thing is, the government say they want to tax people for water mills. I know that you can only have a water mill if you happen to live next to a river or stream, and not all people do. Very few people do, but there were water mills, and if you actually go to an old water mill, they're actually quite spectacular. Or they're something that is a niche and particular and peculiar, like an old windmill, and not very many old windmills have the sails on because they made them take them all off. Water mills are even rarer than the windmills were, right? But if you happen to live near a river or water, why not run the building on the river or stream? Even if the government tax it, but you're paying the tax, but it's free electricity. So you're like paying for electricity. It's just only the tax part on it. It's like you're getting, rather than paying for electricity with the tax on top of it, you're just paying tax without any cost of electricity once you've installed it. It's going to negligibly reduce the amount of electricity needed. But then, some people have got solar panels. The people who do want solar panels on their roofs and use solar energy on their house, there's a lot more percentage of homes in the country than who happen to live near water or have even thought about using water power. But anyway, so this is the thing, right? I don't think a lot of people are happy about having lots and lots of solar powered farms, like fields and fields of solar power. But I've actually driven past, we're even talking like 5 or 8 years ago, I've driven past solar fields where they've got lots of solar panels in fields. I didn't really mind them. You can't see them from that far away until you get close anyway. Now, this is the thing, this is the problem I've got with Dale Vince's plan, right? And I actually have got a grievance against him for the Labour Party, right? Which I'll come to that last. This is the actual problem with the technology, right? Firstly, the whole why these wind turbines? Why them? And I actually think that it's like, basically there is some symbology to it. There's almost some symbology to it, like, the wind power on Windsors, and it's almost kind of like Charles on his claimed, environmentalist movement, his whole World Economic Forum and World Health Organization, and, all his Newbury bypass, and, supposedly turning into a environmentalist in his spare time. It's almost kind of like, there has to be some national symbology in it, or some kind of almost like the alternative of Coronation Street, in it, like having these Windsor farms everywhere. So that's one thing that is annoying. And I know that that's not a reason to not use the energy, because if it works, but we've got solar power. And the other thing is this: so the ocean is a huge, constantly moving mass, which has got huge amounts of energy in it. Now, the thing with the water is that it's a lot more solid than the wind. You can't grab the wind with your hand, right? But you can hold water. And I know that if you get like a kite, or if you get hold your jacket up in the wind, you can actually feel. You can catch a wind in a sail, and it can pull a ship. So if you catch wind, it has got some power to it, right? But the thing with these wind farms is that they've got to be spread out. The thing with these wind farms is that each wind thing has only got 3 wind catchers on it, and they're supposed to be they're meant to be ergonomically designed to get the maximum amount of wind caught with a minimal surface area and all that, right? It's meant to be scientifically designed with absolute precision for the minimum amount of materials with the maximum amount of catching wind, yeah? So it's all economical, it's all, you can get the maximum, apparently, AI and computers have designed it so you can't catch any more wind with that surface area, no matter what you do, and it's the absolute least amount of materials and surface area that you need, right? But you've got to have these things spread out, and they've got to be spread out over a large area. They can't be too close together. And the thing is with these, right, although you can see the trees there are quite low down compared to them, but we used to have ancient trees that were really big. Our trees don't actually grow that long. We used to have very, very ancient trees which used to be a lot bigger and had been there for many, many years. Like in Canada, you've got some of these huge trees in Canada which are really, really tall, and they've been there. Like some of them, the width of them are as thick as a house. Some of those old photographs. So trees aren't even getting any chance to grow as big as they're meant to grow. And then the thing is that there's already a belief that we shouldn't really be eating all this barley and bread and corns and things like that, because bread and the type of breads they're making is really bad for your gut and digestion, and it's just not a good idea. It was never a good idea to make bread or that amount of cheese. We should be eating a lot more plants, nuts, seeds, and vegetables generally. Healthier food, not processed foods. And the thing is, you got Chris Packham, who's going on about wanting to rewild everywhere, which is more trees and more natural areas and less fields just growing barley or whatever. A lot more like Herefordshire, where they've got orchards and mixed landscape and all different kinds of things growing, and more allotments, and like fungi foraging in woods and all that type of things that could be done to make some amazing landscapes. You're not really going to want these things. If you've got a forest, right, if we're wanting to encourage more rewilding, right, and more forests, then you can't have wind farms in there, because how are they going to get there to maintain them, in vehicles or big vehicles, if you've got forests in rewilding? And it's going to affect the wind as well, surely, particularly if it's not flat terrain. And then we've got this issue where they're wanting to build more houses, and they're wanting to try and find more land to build houses. Well, you can't continue building and spreading out and building more houses at the same time as rewilding, and at the same time as having wind farms. That the key thing about wind farms is that they take up a wider area. It's not all consolidated within one area, whatever power it is, or a smaller space. So I just don't think, right, that taking into account the area we've got, the amount of spare land in England, with the continuation of building houses, but at the same time they're saying they want to rewild, right? But at the same time we've got to have more natural crops and mixed crops, not just corn everywhere. I just can't see it working to have wind farms everywhere, because they're going to be, you can't, they're spaced out too far apart to have too many of them at the same time as wanting to look for space to build houses and rewild. So I don't think all those things go together properly if you've got restricted amount of spare land, which we have in England, right? And I don't think that Vince Dale's taken that into account. And if he has, then, I'd like to see his maths on it. But my main gripe is this, right? And that is that for a long time, since I ever seen a guy who floated these kind of like almost like they're just basically joints. It's like a bulk thing that's jointed. It's got a joint and it floats in the water. So it's just like it's almost kind of just like a big bulky object that's in two parts and has got a joint in it, and the joint moves. Like your elbow. It could be like a metal arm. Like someone's arm, but a big metal one floating in the sea. And where the elbow joint is, it moves, right? And the movement of the water, it floats, right? And because it's constantly moving with the water, right? Water's never still. The joint part is always moving, so it generates electricity. Now, it seems pointless just to have loads of those floating in the water. If you just have loads and loads of big metal joints floating in the water, they'll have to be spread out. They will have to be spread out like wind farm. So again, you're starting to have objects which need to take up more space and be spread out rather than restrained or constrained into a particular area, right? Now, I think that logic and intellect dictates through common sense that if you're going to have anything in the water, and if you're going to have anything floating, right, you might as well have another use for it, like multiple uses besides just creating electricity. And if you're going to have anything that's a decent size in the water, then you might as well have it built. You might as well build a bridge and use it for some travel. Now they've got those super tankers, right? Those mega super tankers, right, which they have loads and loads of cargo on, right? Now, if you effectively have like those massive super tanker things, those huge ships, but like 30 miles of them, which 30 miles, like 1 mile, okay, 1 mile, just that 30 times, right? How much does it take to put a mile of them, of super tankers? Not too many, You could do 30 miles of super tankers, right? And then if they're all linked together, right? So where they're joined, there's like a joint which moves, and then you just make it so the top bit's like tapered over. So it can be done. It's within the intellect of humans to do this, right? Scientists, it can be worked out so you can do it, right? However the movement is. So, and you can have cars driving over it. Now, I think this is why they want it. If you do the idea, then it's worth thinking about that old HS2, and they wanted to get London and trains linked in with high-speed trains, and then eventually could go to Ireland on a high-speed train. But, I'm not the greatest fan of trains, but maybe you think, well, if you do that, it has to be a train. It's got to be a train. I thought it would be pretty cool to drive over it, but they hate driving. They don't want us to drive. They don't want us to control vehicles. They want it all to be satellite controlled and electronic. I really think they don't really want us to be able to drive over a 30-mile bridge. But 30 miles is not that far to drive over, to be honest, right? They just don't think we're competent enough to do it, and they think it's too dangerous because we're just retards and we're not even fit to reverse properly without a camera behind us and guided lines because we're all stupid, right? I think they'd really want to do it as some sort of train thing, or even if you drive your car onto the train, like, the tunnel. But I think that regardless of, it doesn't really matter too much if you were to drive over it, or if it was a train, or if you drove onto a train, right, and the train held cars. It doesn't really, to be honest, that's not too important. The thing is that you can have it and you can do it. Now, if each part of it is like a super tanker, whether it's low and flat or whatever, right, or quite wide, so it's not going to tip over even in the biggest storm, right? You know, like a really, really wide super tanker, whatever. They're so heavy, but because they float, no matter how heavy it is, it's going to move anyway, right? Now, the most these wind farms, right, to turn that wind turbine takes quite a lot of force, right? That's what generates the electricity. If you grab, if you got like the Jolly Green Giant, right, and he grabbed hold of it with his hands and he turned it round, it's on a gearage, right? And the gearage is like the harder it is to turn, the more force you've got to put into it. Like on your bike, when you're pedaling on a bike up a hill, your feet are going around really quick, but they're going around really, really, really fast, right? And you go up the hill really slow. There's a setting on the bike where it's easy to pedal, but you don't go that fast. And there's a setting where on your bike, it's very difficult to turn it, but you go like Billio. Because that's once you build some speed up. Once you build up some speed up and you're going up 20 mile an hour, you put it on a gear where actually you're pedaling and that is propelling it forward really fast, but you've already got some speed behind you, right? So with the gearage of such a huge force, it might not move very far. It might only move 10 degrees, but to get it to move 10 degrees takes such gigantian, mammoth, titanic force that the electricity and power that's coming out of such a small, minute movement is sending, the electricity needle, up massively. Even if you move, even if it moves half a degree, you're generating, huge amounts of electricity. Now, if you have that, and for 30 miles, you're looking at massive amounts of electricity. Now this could be dangerous if you're thinking about life in the sea. I mean, if there's some incident or accident and the water gets electrocuted, you might end up killing all the fish, hit on the whole planet or something in one shock. I don't know, but it could be designed so that wherever the electricity cable goes, it's just made so it does not and cannot contact the water. It's just impossible. It just wouldn't happen. It is possible to design that. I mean, maybe we need to be thinking about terrorists here and the Titanic and various things that whether someone hacks it while you're designing it and or there's incidents like the Hadron Collider. But I'm quite confident that with the caliber of scientists that we've got, once we actually get them to do things that we should be doing and that benefits everyone, and not trying to kill us all with strange exotic experimental diseases or whatever that they may or may not be experimenting on, it's I think they can do it. And the thing is, this is my opinion, and this is what I want to say to Dale Vince, right? Or Vince Dale, Vince Dale, right? Without even getting a calculator out, right? And without even getting the greatest mathematician on the planet, and without even getting the best engineer on the planet, or a team of professors, like the highest paid professors on planet Earth, I am absolutely sure, I'm certain, just generally, I'm absolutely convinced that a 30-mile bridge to Ireland, which is constantly moving and like each section of it's a super tanker, I am absolutely convinced, right, that there'll be enough electricity there. There has to be to actually power all of Wales, the country of Wales, because there aren't that many people in Wales. There are only like 3 million people in Wales, right? And there aren't that many houses really for such a wide area. I truly believe that bridge to Ireland, if it was 30 mile long, made out of super tankers all linked together, I'm absolutely certain that it would power electricity for all of the country of Wales, if not more. And if that's the case, which I am sure that it is within the capacity to do, then if you think of Scotland for the next area, well, Scotland as well, it's a bigger area than Wales, but there aren't that many people in Scotland either. For the area of it, most people are in Glasgow and Edinburgh, right? For the whole of Scotland's got quite a low population for the area of it, right? Well, and you could have another one going to the Northern Ireland, and also you've got all those little islands at the top, like the Shetlands and Fair Enough, that could be linked up. I actually think that Scotland as well could be run on that. Now, what you're left with is just the rest of England and, and so forth. And to be honest, if you think about it, I actually don't think there are that many people in Cornwall either. And then you've got, your Scilly Isles and other places, look at Isle of Wight as well. I mean, it might be pushing it a bit if thinking of like, Amsterdam, Norway and so forth. But, it would be a bit of a challenge to go to Norway or Amsterdam. But, it's a lot more productive than the Channel Tunnel, though, because you see, the Channel Tunnel, all that effort to actually drill and dig a tunnel under the earth, which people go on the high-speed train, you drive onto that with your car onto the train, right? And well, you just travel on it. It doesn't actually do it a second purpose. If they had one to France, to Boulogne or whatever, from Dover, it's creating electricity and it's got a travel purpose. I mean, if one to Dover or whatever from Boulogne or whatever could potentially power Kent. Those are massive amounts of areas which could be powered. I mean, I think that there's just something more in this. I mean, and you say, well, if it's safe, what's the problem? And the thing is, it saves having to, people don't like that power station in the Lake District, because apparently it's all a power plant near the seaside and messes the ocean up or whatever. I actually think that you could get rid of all those power plants in certain places, like in the Lake District, and actually people can go to and use the beaches and not have all this, power stations messing up the place. I mean, and the thing with those bridges, they're right out in, the most of it is out at sea. So, I mean, the part of it that you see is only, I mean, most civilians don't go that far out to sea anyway, So, also, we've got this problem with immigration and immigrants and so forth. Wouldn't it be easier for the Navy to operate up and down the side of it as well, and help, defend the borders from there? You could have, like, maybe they don't want it because it's too good for national security, and then stops Putin's, boats flying around. There's all kind of implications with international, waters. But why do they need to? Why do they need to sail military ships around everywhere anyway? It's probably a better idea than Trident, So that's my opinion, and that's what I think we should do and be thinking of. Now if Vince Dale thinks that in the well, we could think about things like that, but in the meantime, I want to bang these up, wind farms. They're just so spread out. I don't think the model of them fits with the Chris Packham rewilding model and the apparent need to build more houses. Because if you add all those together, more wind farms does not compute with more houses and more rewilding. I think that because you can't get out to the wind farms to fix them and repair them with rewilding everywhere. It don't make sense. So, I mean, that's it. And then as for the last thing that I wanted to say to do with Dale Vince, I mean, I ain't got I don't dislike him. I'm not saying that, I don't like the guy. Far from it. I think he's all right. But I have to say this, and this is just, through fact. When I've been learning about election law and voting and found out that, Rees-Mogg shouldn't really have been on GB News, not just because, he broke the rules or said this or that. It actually, you're not meant to provide entertainment if you're working in government for people. because it's like it's a form of gift to the public, or it's a form of it's like free entertainment to the public, and the other person who's a candidate or voting. So you're not meant to actually entertain the public if the public are going to be voting for you in an election, and particularly not at the expense of a private company. So it's actually, and the thing is, also, I found out there was a little oath for being an elector. When you go to vote in a polling station, you used to have a little oath, like, you take an oath as a juror, and the little oath was that, you haven't received any gifts or reward or promise of office or promise of the use of anything or things in exchange for your vote in the election, right? Now, this is the thing. Vince Dale, has been giving money to the Labour Party, been giving donations to them, right? And regardless of whether he is pro-environment or not, I mean, Chris Packham's pro-environment and pro-wildlife and pro-animals. I mean, he hangs around with Dale Vince, that they're both buddies. And regardless of Extinction Rebellion and regardless of Just Stop Oil, the fact is that Dale Vince is giving a lot of money to the Labour Party, and they've just gone and give him permission to build onshore wind farms everywhere, and he's the guy who's going to do it because he's got companies in energy and that. Now, that to me is giving money to a political party with a near guaranteed agreement, or knowing unofficial agreement, or official or unofficial agreement, either or, of like, an understanding that, because you've done favours to the Labour Party and given it money, it's going to make some laws or exchange some laws for you. And also, you're going to vote for them as well. So, I mean, Dale Vince definitely voted Labour, unless he tells me otherwise that he voted for Green Party. If Dale Vince did vote for Labour and give them loads of money, which he likely did if he gave them all that money, he's giving his vote, knowing that, his big business is going to get some kind of permission to do this or that. Now, you've got to get into this whole selflessness of councillors and working, they do what constituents say or ask for after they've been elected, not in order to obtain those votes. Once they're in, then you start asking for things you want, right? This is the whole conundrum with political parties and selflessness. I've looked into it, and it's a flawed basis. Political parties are flawed, particularly in local councils when they all sign a selflessness policy. And local councillors are jurors. They're jurats. They're like the 100 court, the lower level court. They're like the jurors, right? And then you've got 3 in a cabinet, like the magistrates. And the higher court was, the assizes or the Crown Court, where you have like a random jury of mixed people, because that's why they vote. That's what you do in a jury. You vote. You all decide. Guilty or not guilty. And if one of them disagrees, then that's it. Unless you go to a 2/3 or whatever. But that's what they're doing in the council chamber. They're voting the jurats, but they're working jurors. They're active. They have a view. They go for a view. If you've got a complaint or a bin that needs emptying, or you got a problem somewhere, they go for a review just to see what's wrong, and then they go into the council and they make orders and pass things, and sometimes they have to vote on it. Sometimes they've got the power to make the decision themselves. Certain power to action things, like the guy on Colchester Council Watch. He closed the public toilets. Just one lone council had the power to make the order, the executive. He executed the order. I decide whether those toilets get closed or shut down or not me. It was his power to make that decision. One sole councillor, not even a committee of 3. This is it. You can't have political parties. As soon as you introduce those selflessness policies, it doesn't work. There's a critical flaw in it. And really, when they had the Whigs and the Tories, it wasn't really political parties as we know them now. it was only like a group that called themselves this or that and had similar ideas and thinking. It wasn't kind of like it is now, that it's kind of like more like a corporate company or business or entity which you join and you're members and it generates money, and then it's more kind of like a business entity now, which you can't have when you've got when you're having a surgery in the local area, when you've got all the local people there. Even if those majority of people are pro your ideas and party, that they're not going to be all the time. It's just flawed. The idea of it is flawed, and the political parties didn't start off like that. They started off kind of like it was the court party was the cabinet of the government. The court party was the cabinet of the government, like, you know, and the rest were the opposition, because they weren't in the government. You know, they weren't the actual government itself. It was kind of like, well, it's called the cabinet, isn't it? You know, and all the rest. They do vote on things to get it through, but it's just like it's just like you've got in the local normal council chamber, you've got your cabinet, and then you've got the ones who vote. You know, they've got to get things through voted, but there's certain things they can do anyway. But it wasn't really properly like the political parties have become. It was more kind of like just a following or a general way of thinking, what certain groups of people hung together and called themselves, you know, a general name, almost kind of like you've got, you know, I don't know, traditionalists or modernists. Like traditionalists and modernists, really. You know, you can say, oh, are you a traditionalist or are you a modernist? You know, do you like, you know, rural and countryside, or do you like city and tech? You know, it's kind of trying to put people in boxes. You could have, you know, people in Parliament saying, oh, you know, all the modernist politicians sit on one side and all the traditionalists sit on the other side, you know, and all these type of people hang around together because they like modern things. But it's not anything more than like minds, you know, birds of a feather flock together. That's all it is. But then when you start, you know, drawing up, having a headquarters and a gentleman's club and members, and then, you know, and then all these people are gonna vote for you or whatever. But then it's like a non-government group are taking over the government, innit? It's almost kind of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's almost like it is like a business or company that if it gets into government, it's going to do what the company does and its members, not the whole people. And when you've got surgery, you're meant to serve all of your electorate, every single one who votes for you, even the people who didn't turn up to vote, and even the people who are opposed to you, which you can't really do effectively if you've got some kind of, you know, club which half of your constituents aren't members of, because how can a doctor? It's almost, you know, if you look at it like doctors, right? It's not a good model. You know, it isn't a good model if, you know, your doctor cannot treat everyone or cannot see everyone, or cannot help everyone. You know, and I know that people have got varying political views that might not work, but the thing with the surgery is that it's meant to be go majority, isn't it? And the public have never got the exact same. You know, it should be on a case-to-case basis. That's what it should be on, like in a court. You go to court, you've got a case, you present the evidence, and the jury vote on it, right? Then you've got another case, which is, you know, and that's how it should be. And if everyone turns up and, you know, 90% of the people do not want, you know, a housing estate built there, then you don't build it. And if then you turn up on another day and you present the evidence as the case may be, right, and loads of people, you know, want a new sports centre, then you get a new sports centre. Why get something that the majority of the people do not want? they turn up when they're bothered, they turn up when they're concerned, and they turn up when it matters. Now, you say, well, they should have voted for this party or that party. Yeah, but this is the thing. Then they're not bothered enough to turn up and vote, for the party. But when it really does matter and concern, they do have a say. Like, if somebody's going to drop I don't know, whatever. If someone's gonna, put a racetrack, over the road, then they're gonna turn up and they're gonna have a say then, and that's how it should be. They turn up when it matters to them, and when it doesn't matter, then they don't turn up. But this is the thing that the Labour Party are wanting to take up, change people's right to object or the right to have an opinion. Or say, no, you can't take away people's right to object because it's court. It's your right to turn up in court. The local council is the court of civil requests, so you ain't gonna anything that you want to build is only because someone's got some money and they make a case to the local people of, they would like to ask permission. You can't say there's no right to object because it is court. And you've got the right to pay judgment on it. When the councillors are all in with these political parties, it's a broken model, particularly if they've got a selflessness policy, because it just doesn't work, that model. You can't have any attachments to a political party. With a selflessness policy, it just doesn't work. So when you're getting building all these wind farms or solar things approved, what if the people don't want? What if the local people don't want them? And when it comes to it, you can't just have Dale Vince going to the council. I'm a multi-millionaire and I want to build a wind farm, and he just puts a massive suitcase on the table and opens it up. With £10 million in there. That doesn't buy him a wind farm. And even if he's got the most reasonable arguments or strongest case for why they should have one there or why it should be there, if the local people don't want it there and they make a case for it, then, they should be able to object. And you're not even, it doesn't have to come down to the evidence or strong case or how many people object or not. You actually are meant to be able to have a jury if you want, which is not, it doesn't have to be the councillors. It can actually be a jury or a local referendum. And that's by petition to the local area. And your jury is like mixed up of, 12 people were chosen at random. They will likely be from that area, and they vote on it. And if they vote against it, then they don't want it. They're representing the people. This is it. And then you can't, all this government taking away the power from local councils because they, opted to not expand an airport. So the government, said, oh, so many airports have got to be built, but they don't. How can you have so many airports that have got to be built and approved if it's in front of a jury? Because then you're telling the jury what they can and can't decide when that's not possible. It all comes down to this strategy, and what I've realised is that the legislating strategic policies to tend to, like the Mayor of London will do this, the Mayor of London will do that, the Mayor of London will lower traffic, or the Mayor of London will introduce these policies or that. And what I've realised is, well, just a minute, what's going on here? He's actually being told what to do. You're meant to elect a mayor who's going to, how can you have different political parties with different mayors who's going to do this and this mayor's going to do that for these political parties when you've got the central government saying, right, these are a list of things that you will meet these targets, you will reduce traffic, or you will do this or that. You haven't actually voted for a mayor who's going to do anything other than what the government are now legislating and giving him orders. And they're doing this more and more, and what they are is actually subservient. It's almost like a corporate entity which is writing policy and orders to its staff that it controls, staff training, staff grooming. You're not actually electing someone who's going to do anything for the people, because the government are making legislation more and more and more and more now that you've actually got to do not just like, your own behaviour. It's almost kind of like, say, you might as well say, the government have got a directive where, everyone's going to start wearing red hats. The Mayor of London will introduce measures to gradually bring in the wearing of red hats in London over a space of 20 years. That's if that's a government law from Parliament, right? Then how can you have different mayors? Like, you vote for Mayor 1, 2, 3, or 4, and Mayor 4 is, I'm gonna, we don't like red hats. But just a minute. Central government have issued legislation that the mayor must follow, where he's got to gradually introduce red hats. So what is going to be voting for a mayor who doesn't introduce red hats going to do for us when government are implementing directives? And have we really got control of our mayor, regardless of which mayor we vote for? No. So is there really a choice? Is this kind of like fake options? This strategies, and who are powering these strategies in main government? These main political parties, right? So if they're pushing these policies on the people aren't really coming. They're not coming from the people. They're coming from these big think tanks and parties, which is what they keep trying to tell us at the moment, right? And also, these big corporate businesses that are doing lobbying, right? Lobbying. They're lobbying the government. And they've got a lot more money to lobby the government now than we have through petitioning. They're constantly putting bills in front of the government. They're constantly putting, they're constantly putting things to get put through. And it used to be the tool, like I said, Keir Starmer's dad, my father was a tool maker. He made tools. He was highly skilled, right? Well, loads of people were, and they used to petition Parliament for better taxes and better pay breaks and to stop foreign tool makers importing tools because they were stamping their business out and other things. And then gradually now, when the machines took over and the factories and so forth and corporate ownership, McVitie's and biscuits and whatever, the people's petitioning is really pushed out of the side, and these big entities and companies don't need to petition now because they don't need loads of people to sign it. They don't need all their factories. They don't need 100,000 signatures. They just give a massive suitcase full of money and saying, we think, our factories will be good to rule our workers and get this put through. Big suitcase on the table, which is like they do in the local council when they want to build loads of McDonald's everywhere, and these political parties are putting it through, not a jury. And, then we've got, Extinction Rebellion, we're all for the environment. Citizens Assembly, we're all for health. Well, what if Citizens Assembly don't want wind stick farms everywhere, right? This is the thing. Vince Dale can't be any better than BlackRock Vanguard because at the end of the day, he shifted a load of money into Labour. He's sent suitcases of money to the Labour Party, right? And now they've just passed loads of laws so he can build his onshore wind farms. So he's paid them off to get the law made or changed so he can prosper in business. But so what if it's for the environment? At the end of the day, he handed a suitcase of money over and they changed the law for him. It doesn't matter whether we need natural energy. It doesn't matter whether it's a good thing to do. It doesn't matter whether it helps the planet or not. It doesn't matter whether it saves pigeons and birds and hedgehogs and frogs. It matters that he handed money over and that party changed law and he can do what he wants to do now. That there's something in that's wrong with all this voting and the election oath that we were supposed to have or used to have, and this whole basis also of not providing entertainment and things in order to get elected and doing favours or in exchange for office and so forth. Look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's got a promise of the office in government with Donald Trump, promise of office in exchange for, he's been promised an office if they vote Trump in. Can all the electors, what about all the voters, after someone's voted in, then they're going to decide, who has the office. The thing is that in America, you're meant to write down two names. You're supposed to, under the Constitution of America, the voter decides who's having the office, right? There's no deals done for office, right? That's what they vote for. We're voting with the officers. The people vote who's having the office. They walk in and they write their names down. This is going to be the vice president, and he's going to be the president. Whoever gets the most votes wins. They don't. That's a jury vote. Well, they're not doing deals and negotiating. Well, if you guarantee us this, then we'll vote for you. Or, if you promise to do this or that, and put this guy in the office or that, then we'll vote for this other guy who's going to promise us this or that if we vote for him. This is the thing to do with these set policies. You're voting for a person, right, who is going to do what the people want when that decision is going to be made on the table, as the case may be, and as the people want, as each case may be. Otherwise, it's all very kind of like, it's like deals for justice. There's something very wrong about the whole system, But anyway, it's, I don't really want to, I mean, if you're going to have laws, you might as well follow them, right? And if you're going to have principles, you might as well stick by them. But it seems that a lot of the laws and principles now are being cheated, Well, what can you say? This is it. Look, here's another picture here up on the. This is up on the moors, This is what the Good Law Project have said. This is the new wind farm proposed since Labour lifted the de facto ban on onshore wind farms. We got pressure on the Tories to lift the ban, so this new direction. No, actually what happened is Dale Vince, who is a massive, huge natural energy business mogul, gave suitcases of money over to the Labour Party to help them get elected and get all the Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil activist groups on their side as well, in order to get this ban lifted so he could do business, right? It could be any business. Could be making super glue, right? Don't matter what business it is, he had the money over for it. It doesn't make it any better or right that he's doing it for the environment. That, it's going to help the environment, right? It matters that, what is the point in calling out BlackRock and Vanguard and all these lobbying and corporate interests when they're still doing it now? Even the environmentalist people are doing it. So what's the point? And then they're all going to citizens' assembly. It's just all corrupt. They're meant to be starting something which is not corrupt, Now, I'm not saying anything about this wind farm, whether it should be, but look how spaced out these things are, These are the type of places where people might go walking or hiking, So, I just think that a lot more ideas. The imagination of the human is so infinite that the possibilities are endless. Why, every single wind farm could be completely, not wind farm, every single natural energy power station could be completely different. It could look nothing like the last one. It could be its shape and form and its kinetic energy basis could be as different as a loaf of bread is from a gas cloud, or from what a jug of water is, from a piece of paper, it could be nothing resembling it, or it could be absolutely completely different ideology, completely so unimaginably incomparable to the last, which is as brilliant a way to generate energy or electricity, you know. But to say that, oh, we've got these little wind sticks and we're going to put them everywhere over the whole country is just the worst idea ever. You know, there's got to be. I mean, just look at them, right? Even if you didn't need the actual rotor on it, even if you didn't need the blades, even if it didn't need wind, even if you had magic matchsticks, right? Even if you had magic matchsticks, which just like white sticks everywhere, and they didn't even need those turbines on the top with those blades on to catch the wind, even if by some miracle of God, right, it just needed the shaft part, right, the trunk, right, and it was just and it just magically caught electricity from the ether, right, you know, or there was some lightning attractor or something on it. Even if it didn't need that top bit, right, it still would look naff just having them spread out everywhere. You know, there's loads of the white sticks. This is the thing, you know, and I mean, I'd rather have them flat facing upwards. You know, if there was some way that you could have a turbine that was dropped into the floor, you know, like, you know, facing straight up, like a silage thing, you know, that somehow caught wind, even just from the wind that blows over the surface, you know, of the land. You know, some university genius could invent some peculiar angle of, you know, genius angle that just manages to catch wind, or some, you know, spirally Catherine wheel thing that was flat on the surface, but because it was put in a particular place or a particular angle, that it just caught the wind like never before, and spun amazingly fast and powerful. What didn't even protrude, you couldn't even see that it was there. You know, there are all different possibilities of things you can do. I would not even want to have them there, even if they were just stuck up without even the top bit on. You know, like windmills have all had their sails taken off. Even if there were just loads of white sticks everywhere, you know, spread out all over the country. I mean, there's no need. There's got to be a better idea. There has to be. And I know that Extinction Rebellion, you know, like, oh, it's not that bad, you know. You know, it is because they'll end up everywhere, you know. And why does it need to be? I mean, to be honest, solar power's on the houses. You've got roof tiles anyway, you know. If every single house had solar panels on the roof, right? And if we just clicked our fingers now, right? If we just clicked our fingers and every single house in England, you know, even, you know, unfortunately, let's say period houses or vintage houses, right, had solar power on the roof, then that's problem solved there already. Because, like, oh, we've already got electricity everywhere, so done, you know. You know, so you wouldn't even, I mean, you wouldn't really, I don't think that it's not going to affect the countryside and the landscape. It's intrusive into areas that you don't need things. Because if each house makes its own electricity, right, and whatever makes the electricity sort of ergonomically sort of fits in with the building, where if you're walking down the street, you know, it's not affecting the park down the road. It's not affecting you walking the countryside. It's not affecting the woodlands. It's not affecting the landscape. It's not taking any room up in England that's affecting rewilding or having to find more houses everywhere, or, you know, the forests. Or it's not affecting any other area where it doesn't need to be, except, you know, there's already tiles on the roof of the house, is it? That's the thing with it. These things are going, they're imposing themselves into places that they don't need to be, that we don't need to have things, you know, and spreading out. And I think that's the main thing, and the difference from having them at sea. Although I think they're a pain in the ass having them. It spoils the seaside, you know, when you've got them, you know, you're driving on the A55 to North Wales and they're all out there. Anyway, I think that's a pain in the ass. I'd rather, not see anything until you get all the way onto the end of Anglesey, and then, there's a 30-mile super tanker bridge. At least you don't see it. It's not like you're driving on the A55, the entire coast of Wales, and all the islands surrounded with these white sticks around the whole island, the entire island surrounded by them, and the whales are getting caught in them, and it looks like someone's, throwing a box of matchsticks everywhere. You don't see anything. If you could power the entire country of Wales with one bridge to Ireland from, Anglesey to Dublin or whatever, you don't see anything until you get to Anglesey. This is the thing, there's nothing in the countryside in Wales. There's nothing taking up fields in Wales. There's nothing around the coast when you're driving, on the seaside all the way around the coast. So you get to one place, it potentially could power a whole country. Now, there might be some arguments with Ireland saying, oh, well, we want the electricity, and, why you got the electricity, not us. But at least whoever has it, one or the other, it doesn't really matter. Toss the coin. There's, it saved a lot of hassle. I just think that it's a better idea, because otherwise, there's a space that it takes up in land that I don't think that we've got that space to negotiate with. I don't think that we have, because we've got the arguments with having to find places for houses. We've got arguments for having to rewild, and we've got arguments for where and what we're going to grow everywhere. It's just another pain in the ass to have to figure into it all, particularly if you want to start doing more and more and more and more. And then where people want it and where people aren't objecting to it or whatever. But, this is just my opinion, I think the way that it's being done is sketchy, because it's kind of like saying, oh, you can do dodgy deals with political parties if it's for a good cause, like the environment, but not if it's, but and another thing, if Dale Vince, right, if it was like, not for profit, if it was like, oh, here's a lot of suitcases of money. Can we get the laws changed to build a power station? And we're going to run it for no profit and just do it out of the goodness of our hearts for everyone and provide them with free electricity, as long as it pays for itself. Then I wouldn't mind. But they're not. This is Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn. Prefers if it didn't cost us anything. If this is the thing with Corbyn. If you build a power station that gives everyone electricity and no one has to pay anything for it, then who wouldn't want that? And what's the problem? And why shouldn't they have to pay for it? If it can be done for free, and you've got people running it who actually aren't bothered about themselves, they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, what's wrong with that? How could the Archbishop of Canterbury be against that? Where does he get all his pallet loads of relief from? People kindly give them to him, wouldn't it be great if all these corporate companies were, giving us all free things as they give to the Archbishop of Canterbury's good causes? Oh, look, God's just given me a warehouse full of relief crates, we've been blessed. He's not turning them away, and saying, oh, no, we don't want them, is he? He's saying, oh, thank you very much. Bless you. You're very kind. Wouldn't it be great if all these big corporate companies, were going, oh, would you like some free electricity for 3 years? Are you sure? Yes, have it, who could say no? This is just a donation. It's a charitable donation, Almost like Dale Vince giving Labour some money. Oh, look here, Labour, have a suitcase full of money. There you go. I hope your party wins. And then, by the way, we're just giving a lot of free electricity as well to the people. There you go. Thank you for voting for Labour. We're going to give you some completely free electricity. It costs nothing. Nothing at all. Now that you've allowed me to build these wind farms everywhere, how else could I thank you? Have free electricity. This is the thing. But they're not, are they? They're doing it for money and profit. But we can do more. We can do more. Well, you know, well, you can do more now. You got permission, you know, you know, you know. But anyway, no, I don't want. I don't think that's. Why? What is the point in throwing a box of matchsticks everywhere?